On this episode of Blending Bourbon, Dixon and I have a conversation with Denny Potter and Jane Bowie from Potter Jane Distillery.
Blending Bourbon is the podcast that takes you beyond the barrel and behind the scenes of the whiskey industry with master blenders Dixon Dedman and David Mark Young.
Welcome back to another episode of Blending Bourbon. I'm Dixon Dedman with 2XO Whiskey, joined by my good friend who is proud, is really excited about finishing second place in the Naughty Ken Doll Lookalike Contest at Halloween in Omaha, Nebraska. The master blender and owner of Golden Sheaf, David Mark Young. Hello, pretty boy.
I feel like you're watching me even when you're not around. I don't know how you know all these things.
It's the interwebs.
It's the interwebs. Well, Dixon Dedman, happy podcast recording day to you. Oh, check this out. Check this out, man. You've got that seems content appropriate. Why don't you lean into that a little bit?
Yeah, we were able to finagle some special guests onto the show today. I'm showing off this hat because I sent some people over to steal some swag off the table when they had an announcement recently. But super cool to finally, we've been talking about this for a little bit, but to get Denny Potter and Jane Bowie to join us on this podcast. I told them a lot of amazing things about this podcast, so I completely lied to them about like how cool this is and what we're doing. And so yeah, they we've got them now. They can't. I don't think they can jump off, but
locked in.
They're in.
Welcome, guys. Welcome, Denny. Welcome, Jane. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having us. We look forward to it. Like, we love this stuff.
Fun way to spend a Thursday afternoon.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I can't get enough of this. That's why we do this every week, and I get to spend time with Dixon. Unfortunately, he's in a different part of the country, but I'll take it. It's good virtual time. So we're honored to have you. I tell you, I'm super excited. You guys are all over the interwebs, as Dixon would say. All over social. I've seen you doing podcasts, listen to podcasts and videos, and what you're embarking on here is thrilling. It's exciting. You have to be proud and excited, I would imagine.
And terrified.
And terrified, sure.
Jane, do you find that it's tough to keep up with all the amazing things people are talking, and saying about you guys because of your kind of limited access to decent Wi-Fi? Is that something that...
I do. My mom takes screenshots, prints them out, and sends them via the mail. So I'll find out in 6 months what's been happening. It's perfect.
Message in a bottle. I love it.
She's probably the youngest on this podcast, but yet the most technically challenged.
I am. I'm very analog still. I still take all my tasty notes with pen and paper. I have notebooks full.
I heard a rumor. I want to jump into this because I heard a rumor, and I want to get both of your take on this, because I think what you're doing, what you're building, and also what you're kind of taking this leap into getting back to being able to explore your creativity and your passions and to kind of to be in a place where you're the driver, you're captaining your ship, so to speak, is got to be pretty incredible. And I heard this rumor that these that y'all have really kind of defined roles for Potter Jane moving forward, and the roles are, and correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you can talk to these roles, but from what I have been told and what I understand is that Jane, you're really going to kind of manage and you're really the brains of the operation, that you're really like, this is, and you're the talent, and that Denny, again, this is just what I'm hearing, but I hear that you're more of the provider, that you're kind of, I hear you've proven to be quite a successful hunter on the property and in the area, and that it's really kind of your job is to bring, to provide the team and the staff with meat that you're
with wild
specifically
game.
venison,
wild
right?
game. Is that true? Is that
actually, I mean, the way you put it, Dixon, yeah, it's all true. All of that is true. I would never, I mean, one, as much as it pains me to say it, Jane is the brains behind what we're trying to do. And yes, I did run over a deer with my truck. So
not a deer,
bow, not a gun.
a baby deer.
A fawn.
A fawn.
So, David, you've heard this story? I didn't know.
I've heard
that
about Project Fawn and its origins. Yeah, absolutely.
It was well, I mean, and I don't know. I mean, one of the incredible things about our project was, as we were, buying property in Washington County, was we were dealing, with a group that had 14 acres, and as we were talking about closing on this property, the guy was like, well, Dixon is my son-in-law. And we were like, wait, what? So no joke, like the 14 acres that we bought as part of our 153 is part of Dixon's family's property. And that is the property that I ran over the deer. I mean, it's probably about halfway in, so 7 acres in, and yeah, so it's probably still there, Dixon.
My favorite part of this, because clearly you never let the truth get in the way of a good story as far as I'm concerned, but like when Elizabeth was telling me that they told you, like, well, no, you gotta back over
you gotta go back and run over it. Like, you gotta kill
That's
it.
what Jane kept saying, yeah.
I grew up in the country where I grew up like, you do not, right? So he runs over this baby waiting for its mother to come back and find it in the grass. And you can hear it crying. So I'm like, Denny, we got to go kill this. He's like, I'm like, I'll run over it. And everybody's trying. It's not funny, but if you could have seen Denny's face, it was kind of funny. And it's like Darwin, it was going to die anyway at some point.
No, I mean, but let's go back to the very beginning of it. Was Dixon, as we're driving through the property, I mean, it's a hayfield, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So, I have an F-150, and literally it was over the hood of my truck as we're driving through the field. We didn't own it yet. You all still owned it. Yeah. And everybody's like, just keep going, just keep going. I'm like, and I had said, I'm worried because this is the time of year that deer will lay down in the field and I'm not going to see it. And everybody's like, just keep going. And I mean, if I say it was a minute, it was 30 seconds that I hit it, I felt it, and I'm like, did that just happen? I said, did I just run over a deer? And then you could hear it. And I was like, and Jane looks out the window and she's like, yeah, you just ran over a fawn. It's still alive. And then they're all like, then they're very
you just knocked its spots
like,
off.
Back up over it. You got to back up over it. I'm like, no, fuck that. I didn't want to go down this goddamn field anyway. I didn't want to come down here. I'm not backing up over it.
Then,
oh my God,
like,
it was
fast
terrible.
forward 2 weeks.
My family's like, yeah, they're gonna a brand called Fallen Fawn about this whole story that happened.
Yeah, that's a true story.
So fast forward 2 weeks, and we have a project meeting with the Blankos and a few other folks to kind of look at the land and where we could put the distillery. And it's the official kickoff. The architects were there. Well, Denny ended up not being able to make it. He had something come up, and we decided instead of delaying, I would just go and then we would keep moving. So the team says we need a project name. Well, at the time, we couldn't really just put our names on it. So I'm like, Project Bambi. And so I told the story. he doesn't know. We get an email that night from the architects, and the subject is, highly confidential, Project Bambi. My phone rings almost immediately. I'm like, hello, and Denny's like, what the fuck? Like, seriously? So it's still Project Bambi. It's taken on a life of its own.
Yeah, it will forever be. It's Project Bambi. Until we're making
Bambi
liquid,
Lane.
it's Project
We're gonna call
Bambi.
one of our back roads Bambi Lane.
Oh, this is so good.
I love a pub called the Lost Fawn.
It's the gift that keeps on giving all year long, Clark.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard that story too many times. No, back over it. No, I can't back over it.
No, I'm not backing over it.
I was like, I'll back over it. Get out of the truck.
No, you would not. You would not.
So, have you ever been hunting, Denny?
So funny story. I was born in Louisville, but I grew up in Madison, Indiana. Was never a big hunter. And the first time I went hunting, I went with a buddy of mine. And so we're going deer hunting, right? And as we're leaving to go deer hunting, he's got his gun, his shotgun, and he hands me a BB gun. And I said, what the fuck am I going to do with this? I said, am I going to shoot his eye out? Right. And then run up there and beat the fuck out of it and, choke it out? Like, I was like, I don't understand how this even works. He's like, just go with it. And so that's the only time I've ever been hunting. I went with a BB gun. I was going to have to shoot its eye out and then choke it out. And then I guess field gut it. I don't know. I mean,
or in hindsight, run it over with your truck.
Not a hunter, just never have been.
Yeah.
But,
speaking of hunting,
it's funny. Like, my father-in-law has this land. He's got 350 acres over there, whatever. We but he goes out and rides the farm like nightly because he just likes to see the deer. Doesn't allow people to hunt on it. Like, he just really, he just loves to watch them, loves to go, everything. And he said, he had this really strong, it was really moving evening one night. He saw this mother with these, young fawns following her. It's like really a special, special time. And of course, he was just devastated the next time he saw this family of deer. They're down one fawn. It's just like
they were all draped in black, had a veil on her face.
They had black armbands on.
It's like it
is what it is.
Parade in New Orleans.
You know what? We'll light a candle every year. Like, which fun.
We could have a little statue.
Memoriam. Yeah, we'll have an in memoriam. Yeah, we'll do it.
Oh.
I can't wait until the visitors center opens, and I'm going to present you all with a deerskin rug to put right in the front door.
Well, it won't be a big one. Maybe it goes in the bathroom.
Yeah. No, it's just.
I mean, it was a fawn, so it'll be the size of something that would be right in front of the toilet.
It's for the distillery diorama.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you'll never live that down. You roll out first 10 year single barrel, and there'll be some reference to it.
It's fantastic. I can tell. Correct me if I'm wrong. Not to take this in a different direction, because I do like making these jokes about the deer, but. And I'm not going to ask you to comment on, whatever in the past. I share personal experience. Not near as long as y'all, but there was a period for me when the fun was gone. The challenge was gone. I've talked about this at length, where the ability to express and be creative, to challenge myself with new ideas. I was always had to fit in somebody else's box, and I'm not really wired that way. I kind of, I think that's why I find myself personally to be in such a better space and enjoying what I'm doing now. And I have that freedom back, and I have that opportunity to, I don't have somebody that says, no, this doesn't meet, this isn't, this isn't, this is our vision now, and you're not. And it's like, yeah, well, I'm not, I love the opportunity and the place I'm in to pursue the things that I enjoy pursuing, to go places with this brand that I want to go, the freedom to, to really, I don't mean to say create it on the go, but it's oftentimes like, yeah, I like where this is going. Let's follow this. Let's go here. Let's do, this is such a fun, amazingly fun industry to be in until you start to feel like I felt like my hands were tied behind my back to a certain extent. I was shackled to a certain extent, and the people I was working with were trying to use whatever reputation that I had personally created to further what they wanted for something that was not always what I wanted. That's where I was coming from. And you may not have had that same experience. I don't really know. What I do know is the time that I've spent with y'all, the times that, some of them that I remember and some of them that are a little foggy. I sense this like excitement around, like, yeah, we don't even know, but we're just going to have a blast doing it. That's kind of what I take from chatting with y'all and whatever. And I mean, is that fair to say? Is that kind of way off base? Or are you like, no, we're building a massive corporate machine that,
I think it's fair. I won't speak for Denny. I'll only speak for myself. I mean, I feel like a lot of creative freedom at Maker's Mark on a brand that didn't traditionally innovate necessarily. And I kind of liked the hanging on to tradition, but also thinking about the future and how to push things. I think for me, it really came down to just wanting to, why wouldn't we try? I mean, this industry, it's all I've ever known, and I love it. And really kind of wanting to live and die by our own decisions, whether they're right or wrong. And yeah, let's go make something new, and let's go make bourbon exactly the way we think it should be made. Not that it was made badly there. It was made beautifully there. I think it's just, and we left great jobs, and it was a wonderful place to work. You never agree with everything, just like our employees aren't going to always agree with us. But it was less about running away from something and running towards something new, I think, for me.
And the freedom that comes with something new, right? Like you get to paint your own picture now.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that was.
Yeah. I mean, I think that for me personally was a lot of it. I've been in the industry for 26 years, and for pretty much all of that worked for two incredible companies. And as Jane said, it wasn't running away, but, with the job that I had, and probably the job that Jane had as master distiller at Heaven Hill and also at Makers, is, you embrace these stories about the founders, right? At Makers, you're talking about the Samuels and how, in 1954, or at Heaven Hill, you're talking about the Shapiras in 1935. And you keep telling these stories, and it's more than anything, it becomes incredibly inspirational, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, it made sense back then, but it was also kind of, well, why can't we do this now? Like, why can't, we take this leap now and, follow in the footsteps of these people that did it, one or two generations ago. And it was like, you know what? and you know, my kids are out of the house. It's just me. Like, I can risk this. I can do whatever. And yeah, I mean, I think it was more of, if we're going to do it, let's go do it. I mean, we always, you know, in the industry, you always talk about doing your own thing, right? Because of these stories of the founders and how, you know, if you're a Jim Beam, it's all about the beams and the multi-generational operation. And then you're like, you know, how cool would that be if we could start something like that, right? Like, we can be generation one. And it really was a lot more about that. And it was, you know what, if we're going to do it, we got to go do it. We got to go do it now. And you know what, if we fail, whatever. I mean, that'll suck. It'll be terrible, but at the same time,
but you can't think that way.
I think we would regret, you know, 20 years from now going, God, I wish we had done this. I wish we had done that. And, you know, maybe we'll be a generational story, whether we're a success or a failure, but somebody will have a good time telling our story, right? Like, you know, goddamn, Denny ran over a deer and the fucking project was cursed from that point forward. But it's our story.
She'll kill you in your sleep. You know, but it's funny to hear you say that.
I don't know how you guys have done it by yourselves, though. Like, we say this all the time. There's two of us, and there's something about having someone else when the fear creeps in or you're doubting yourself. I mean, we are not entrepreneurs. I think you guys are probably natural born entrepreneurs. I think we are whiskey people that are taking a bit of a gamble on ourselves, and our skills complement one another perfectly. But I look at two guys like you and think, holy shit, like, you're doing this on your own. Like, that's terrifying. I couldn't have done this by myself.
I can't. That is probably applicable to David. That is not at all applicable to me. I mean, you know, you've met my original partner, Mark Carter, and you know, that was the whole reason what we started worked, is because I had a skill set. I could create I could source the bourbon, blend the bourbon, and Mark had, you know, he was making custom wine out in California for all these different clients. So he had the people on staff that could, you know, do the TTB stuff, the cola stuff, sources the glass, the closures. Like, you know, I mean, I actually, you know, I'm very, very, very pinch myself every day for the relationships I have and have had that have got, you know, I could have never done Kentucky Owl without, you know, Mark Carter and Sherry Carter and that we were a team. We were a partnership. I was not flying solo. Like, they had, you know, they were a big part of it. And then, like, Denny, to your point, you know, it's like, I built this brand telling a story about my great-great-grandfather in 1876 being given a distillery at his wedding and opening it in 1879. And, you know, it's like, you know, we're making great whiskey, but we're telling this story that, you know, and that was one of my big things. Like, when can I, you know, I want to do this about me, about what we're doing. I want to take a stab at this my way, not like, and then I was kind of floundering with how to get that done. And there were three guys that I worked with. They were Diageo guys that came over to Stoli, and then they left, and they're up in Connecticut with an agency. And they said, look, we know you've got it. We know you can do it. And so the four of us partnered to, without them, I wouldn't be any, nothing 2XO would have ever happened. I think that's what's really cool about, what y'all are doing. And it's that, you're kind of doing this together. It's really important sometimes that, you have all these conversations, these calls, these meetings, and blah, 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 blah. But the most important conversations are at 9 o'clock at night after a couple of drinks, and you're like, what the fuck are we doing? And, I mean, it's like are we crazy?
Daily.
Is this,
all the time.
And I think I truly believe having that like inner circle, those people that are in it with you, that, you know, and that you're not out there all by yourself trying to do something. And that's, I couldn't have done anything. I could, you know, try to do it by myself. I'd be delivering pizzas or something like that.
Well, and the other thing is you're not taking on a small, you know, okay, we're going to put out a batch of 1,000 bottles and we're going to, you know, gradually, slowly roll up. I mean, you're pro grade, right? You're going into this full bore, and I mean, you've got, you know, plans. What was 2029? What's your first 2026? Your first
25. The stills will fire up, and we're gonna do the wait. I mean, as long as the contract market holds to pay the bills, you know, we'll do things to bring people along on that journey. But I think long-term goal, we both love kind of that 6 to 8 year as a standard age. Like that's our sweet spot, I think.
Right.
And again, maturation dependent. Dixon's father-in-law sold us some beautiful land. Hopefully it matures whiskey well. So, I mean, we're a decade away from things moving on brand probably.
Right. Which is crazy and awesome. And I get that it's scary as hell.
It's terrifying.
But you're doing it the right way. You're absolutely doing it the right way, you know, and you've got the backing, you've got the experience, you've got, you know, so you're going all in, and that's great. That's great to see. I see it from the other side. You know, I didn't have the experience. I didn't have the history. I think I have the passion and, the insanity, but it had to be a little bit crazy. Yeah. And it's a different path, and it's also, you know, it's different things too. I'm wearing all the hats, and I'm, you know, I have to admit that doing research on both you, Jane and Denny, and kind of your path and how you started and where you're going now and what the future looks like has been inspiring for me to, you know, sort of step back and look at, okay, our long-term plans, are we going to get there with this slow roll? Or, you know, should we broaden our scope and, you know, consider one of my biggest things I pride myself on is not taking out loans, not, you know, taking on partners and trying to establish some stake in the industry without, you know, paying for that. And without having the experience like y'all have to back that up. You know, you've got clout and you're building this conglomerate based on that, your expertise and your experience. So that's awesome. But, you know, sometimes doing big things or doing more with less is, you know, a great way to start. But then eventually it's like, okay, what are the big visions and how realistic is it that we're going to achieve that?
So I have a question, and maybe you don't want to answer this question, you know, which is totally fine. But you mentioned the market, you know, and Denny, I think I told this story the last time we were recording a podcast. I was on this panel at Bourbonomics. You know, that Bourbonomics event they do every year in Louisville, and it was a scary panel. Because I had no business being up there. It was Jim Rutledge, Wes Henderson, myself, and Alan Ladd, Max's son-in-law, right?
Oh, Alan Ladd, yeah. His son-in-law, yeah.
And
Dixon, you had every reason to be on that
panel.
I agree.
This is a long time ago.
As a matter of fact, you're yeah.
And after I kind of had to step in and break up what could have turned into a small situation with Jim and Wes over exactly what it means to be Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey and how you can put that on your label. And I got up and I was like, okay. And yeah, I can't remember who was moderating the thing. I was like, this is going to turn into a fight between two men who no one needs to see fight. You know, it would have been kind of an open-handed slapping situation. But they asked,
maybe it should be an eating contest.
They asked Alan,
Crab claws or something, you know.
so what's the future of this this industry? And I was shocked at his response, which was, if any of you in this room are interested in getting into the distilling business, wait a few years. There's going to be a lot of really nice used equipment for sale on the market. And I was like, wow. Okay. That's pretty strong.
It's pretty eye-opening.
And, I think where you guys are building 6 years ago, that was a big empty industrial park. And there's a lot of bourbon activity going on within a small area in Washington County. Mark Carter and I actually, right kind of on the site y'all are on, we were looking at building 3 rick houses just for storage. And that's been, I don't know, that was probably 2015, 2016 or something like that. But you see what they're doing down there in E-Town and these things that are coming up. And I mean, it's kind of scary, right? I mean, it's not scary for you all, kind of scary, but I mean, a lot of bourbon. We're making a lot of bourbon.
We had this conversation. I mean, I think we didn't do this sooner because we kept saying, I mean, and Denny, if you want me to shut up, give me some sort of signal. But we just kept saying, are we too late? What's happening? And I think where we got to...
That was probably to me for asking the question, not to you, Jay.
No, it's a great question.
Where we got to is, yeah, it's busy. There's a lot. But this industry is a marathon, and you plan in decades. And at the end of the day, we decided we'd back ourselves. If 100 go after it and 1 succeeds, we're going to bet that it's us. Mm-hmm. And maybe that sounds egotistical, but we feel like between the 42 years together of experience and having done a lot of different jobs and understanding the patience and discipline that this industry takes, because it does. I think it takes a lot of... not vision in the sense of creativity, but to see where it can go and how to think about 20 years out, because you plan in decades in this industry. So we feel you.
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
No, I mean, like Dixon, like just specifically talking about the panel, right, that you were on, and not pointing out exactly who said what. But you think about the people that are saying things like that, right? But they're all expanding, right? Heaven Hill's building another distillery with another, 66-inch column still. So that'll be their 4th 66-inch column still. Angel's Envy, they're building a distillery, in Henry County? Mm-hmm.
It's in Henry
Shelbyville.
County.
West just bought the Kentucky Castle, and they're building a distillery. Right. So I get it. And maybe that's, maybe if you're doing 1 to 20 barrels a day, it's a concern. But I've heard the same thing for a long time. But yet the signals from what people are actually doing do not support that. And that's not what we're basing what we're doing on. But the signals do not support that. And they got a lot of people that are very, very, very smart, and they've been in the game for a long time, that are betting on the future. So why shouldn't we?
Well, that's right? Where I go with my argument. Or not, I shouldn't say argument, but like, I also spent quite a bit of time in the consulting world, and I got pulled into this consulting world, and I was consulting for these brokers who were buying up all of these spec barrels from all of these new distilleries who are using, that capital of spec barrels to, fund their development. But the problem I had, and the reason I quit doing it, is because they're telling these speculative investors that it's the Heaven Hills, it's the Jim Beams, it's the Sazeracs, it's these big brands that are going to be buying all of these speculative barrels, at 4 years old at $4,000 a barrel. And I was saying, look, all of these big players are doubling down on their own capacity. Like, they're not going to the market to buy their stuff. They're doubling down. The flip side of that is I always told, everybody that comes to me and says, hey, we're thinking about starting a brand. We're going to raise 20, 30, 40 million dollars, build a distillery. I was like, stop, save your money. That was something you had to do 20 years ago. Today, there are so many opportunities to have somebody make exactly what you want to make, exactly what you want to produce, and they'll make it. And you don't have to worry about the day-to-day operation. You don't know anything about distilling. So why the fuck would you do that? And then it becomes, what's important? Is it just buying barrels, or are you looking for a partner that can make something specialized, something that's really interesting, that's not cutting corners to increase production? Their goal is not to, they're not going to take essentially whatever it is, 400, barrels worth of distillate, dilute it so they can sell you 500 barrels of watered down. It's like, find the right partners, find the right people, find people that know what they're doing. And that's, that's what, forget about building your own distillery. Find somebody that's talented enough to, and for me, like, that was what sealed the deal for me to partner with Prestige Beverage Group. They had these 2 contracts of proprietary, mash bill distillate that we had long-term contracts for these barrels. And it wasn't like, oh, I got to go out to the market and buy a bunch of generic stuff that was made here, there, or wherever, that I've got to work really hard to turn into something special. Like, I'm not on the market. I don't have to go to the market. It's really, and that's, to me, what you're doing is like, okay, you've got the chops, you've got the talent, you've got the ability. Like, what, there's no doubt in anybody's mind what you're going to create is going to be far superior to any other kind of opportunity that one might have when they were looking for stuff. I mean, I'm Jane, if there were 100 and one's going to make it, I'm betting on you guys.
Thanks, Dixon.
You can send me the middle finger emoji later. But.
No, I mean, that means a lot. Like, Jane and I we feel very lucky to be in the position we're in. Very lucky. And the luck is paid off in the fact that we're able to go do this and maintain majority equity because a bank believes in us. And
those people are crazy, but I like them.
They are crazy. They're very crazy. But it also gives you, I mean, it's like this, this incredible positive cycle that exists, right? Like, you come up with a plan, they support the plan, and it's all this like, okay, I think maybe we can do this. And I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Like, we feel at the end of the day, there's one thing we know: we're gonna make good whiskey. Yeah. We will. Like, we know how to make good whiskey. We know what to look out for in the beginning on the distillation side. We know what the possibilities are on the maturation side with Jane and all that. So we know that we can make good whiskey. It's all the other things that are variables that exist that you just don't know, but we still feel pretty good about. Again, if it was easy, we'd all go do it, right? Like, there's a reason why there's only a handful of us that actually step out on the ledge and go do something like this. And
But I mean, if I'm being honest with you,
well, it's fun talking to you all about.
You know
this,
why I know that you're going to do it, and like
do.
why you're committed to it, and why you're going to be successful. Truly, I mean this, and I think after I said you're welcome to use this in your sales pitches, down the road or whatever. But like, you could have done this project and called it Springfield Distilling Company or Washington County Distilling Company or Dead Fawn Distilling Company.
Did you see our list?
I did, but I'm a firm believer always that like if you're truly committed, if your heart's really in it, and if you're willing to put your name on it,
right?
Yeah, that's a different level of commitment. I'm sure you had a great list and all that stuff, but if you weren't all in, I don't think it would be the Potter Jane Distillery.
That's a big deal. Yeah. And something you just said, Denny, just kind of gave me your perspective and where y'all are at right now. So you're probably in a really, scary phase where
he's in St.
It's all money. It's
like
all,
how
it's all, construction. It's things aside from doing what y'all want to do, your core, producing whiskey, tasting whiskey, blending whiskey, doing all those things. You'll get to that. And I can imagine, it's the further away from that you are, the a little more stressful it is. But how exciting, because what you're doing right now is you're creating your canvas, right? This is you're laying down your blank canvas, and going forward, it's what you put on it, what you design, what you craft and create. So I'm excited for you. That's incredible. That's amazing. You guys have a super exciting, maybe a little stressful path going forward. So good for y'all. Congratulations. And thanks for sharing with us where you're at, and couldn't say more.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this. I'm sure that you're probably sitting there going, man, this is 44 minutes of my life I can't get back. But
no, this is
not at all.
I think it would be
these are the
interesting.
things that keep us going. And funnily enough, the construction process and the process design are the best parts of our week. And we've had people even on our own team say, do you really want to use that beer density? You could squeeze out 20 more barrels here if you compromised on this beer density, or you compromised where are you putting your enzymes? We're not using enzymes. Oh, you'll change your mind. No, we won't. And we get it.
Right.
And I actually these are the moments talking to people like you and that actually keep fueling us, not to sound cheesy, but it's true. Because you have to listen to kind of your own convictions through the process. And we know where to make shortcuts. And that's the biggest commitment is we are going to do things that aren't necessarily popular from an operational standpoint, that the average consumer couldn't give two shits about until they taste it in the glass, and then they're going to care a lot. Thank you guys for inviting us.
They just know it's good.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the reason we have this podcast, is for those, nuances in the background, those things that make, what the consumers are purchasing.
There are not a lot of master distillers who would try to kill all the wildlife off in the proximity of their distillery. But,
it's why, Dixon, it's why I'm retiring the title. I will not have that title.
I heard, to pull that thread a little further, I heard something about some reference to a turd herder title in some interview.
Yeah, if you're not worried about the back end of your process, just like if you're living in your house, right? Like you flush your toilets, everything goes down the sink, you kick on your garbage disposal, all that stuff. Nobody cares. Somebody's got to care. Like if that guy doesn't show up for work, we're all fucked. So it's the same in our industry. Like the back end, it's the tail that wags the dog. I say it all the time. It is. We make more byproduct than we do whiskey. So you better care about it, and you better have a plan, and you better be open to all these different technologies Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, of course, I love that side of it as much as I love the
let's
whiskey
get
side.
Hamilton to start running hogs on all that land, and then you can just
The hogs are not known to eat a lot of stillage, but if Hamilton wants to set some cattle, but maybe we need to challenge that.
I don't know, like all the old pictures of old distilleries pre-prohibition, they were hogs.
Like if you watch like Peaky Blinders or anything like that, hogs will eat dead bodies. So I think we could probably get them to eat distillers' byproducts.
If they're hungry enough.
Maybe we need to get into that.
The ones that don't eat get run over. Whatever.
The difference, Denny, there's caring about it, and then there's being ultra passionate about literal shit, and like that's you.
Again, I'm a turd herder. I don't care. Whatever.
We had
certified wastewater operator for 7 years.
We'd had too many cocktails one day.
But Jane, it must be a privileged life where you just flush the toilet and then it all goes out of your head, right? Like,
for a minute.
It goes to that magic place that it just, it all disappears, right? No,
hey,
there's a guy at the end of that pipe.
Put the rum down.
No, that's not happening.
Here's a suggestion. Here's a thought. I'm going to extend an open invite to y'all, and you are welcome to come back here and talk about all of your challenges and moving forward. Share your progress. Consider this your open invite forum to come back and hang out with us. I would love to do this again.
You have no idea.
Anytime. This is fun. Yeah.
You're going to be like our couples
you just
counselor
opened Pandora's box.
That's exactly what this is.
Yeah.
And the more the merrier. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
We can get on board.
I'm gonna go ahead and sign us off for this episode. But please, let's talk afterwards. We'll get this set up. We'll get you guys coming back and figure out a frequency. I think this could make for some, like I said, y'all are entertaining. You have an amazing dynamic. I love it. It's not just about making whiskey. You got to take some notes, Dixon. Here comes our next.
I just Googled turd herder. So
I gave him that title.
That came from Jane, by the way. I didn't just make that up.
We wrote each other's bios. It was a cocktail afternoon where we thought it would be a good idea to write the other one's bio.
Well, I'm gonna have to sign us out here, folks, from this episode. Thank you, Jane Bowie.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you, Denny Potter from Potter Jane Distillery. We look forward to talking with y'all again. Thank you so much. And congratulations.
Don't forget your sunscreen.
Thank you, guys. Love
your protection.
We'll talk soon, guys.
I'm an Irish.
Don't forget to like, share, comment, and all the other things. Follow us. From Dixon and I, Denny, Jane. Cheers. Everybody.